Hello, good evening, and thanks for your time. This is News at 10 on TV3 and 3FM 92.7. We're live from the News Hub here at Adisawe, Kanda, Accra, and around the world. You can follow our live stream on facebook.com/news on TV3 as well as on 3news.com. Let's begin with the day's major news highlights. More than 170 households and schools as far as 1.5 kilometers, including the Presbyterian Boys Secondary School, Legon, were affected by last Saturday's explosion. The National Disaster Management Organization says it is still assessing the extent of damage caused by the disaster. The Food and Drugs Authority has destroyed more than 1,000 cartons of the unregistered canned fish Asahi mackerel. The exercise was carried out on the premises of the Mile 7 District Police Station in Accra under the strict supervision of officials from the FDA, Zoom Lion and the police. Tension at Bimbila in the northern region following the burial of the late Nakpa Na Salifu-Dawuni. The Bunai family had vowed to resist his burial, which was scheduled for Thursday, October 12. Meanwhile, the body of the late Nakpa Na Salifu-Dawuni has been buried in Bimbila ahead of the scheduled Thursday, October 12, due to security reasons. More than 200 students from 5 agricultural training institutions picketed at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to demand immediate restoration of their allowances. Their action comes a day after government restored allowances of trainee nurses and midwives. And elsewhere in Kenya's High Court has ruled that all candidates who participated in the August 8th presidential election can now stand in the rerun later this month. This comes a day after the main opposition candidate Raila Odinga announced that he was pulling out. Those are our major news highlights. Remember, you can hear us live on 3FM 92.7. Up next is a big one. Welcome. This is the big one. The body of the late Nakpa Na Salifu-Dawuni has arrived in Bimbila amidst heavy tension and security. The remains was airlifted from the Yendi Municipal Hospital morgue under heavy security to Bimbila, where it is expected to be taken through some customary rites by the Nakpa family before burial, which was earlier scheduled for October 12. The district chief executive of the Nanumba North District, Abdullahi Yakubu, will receive the body for onward handing over to the family of the late Nakpa Chief Salifu-Dawuni. Right, so our correspondent Zubaida Ismail is joining us from the northern region on telephone. Zubaida, good evening. So what is the atmosphere in Bimbila like?
What I can say is that currently calm has returned to the area. There was heightened tension between yesterday, just around this time, up to today. During the course of the day, every business had come to a standstill because people did not know what the real issues were. Now, it all had to do with the fact that though the Regional Security Council had directed an Afghan family to bury the late Na Salifu-Dawoni at his private residence. We also picked information, and of course, I confirmed that I know that the Nakpa family went ahead to dig a grave at the graveyard, which is reserved for only chiefs that ascended to the Bimbila skin, and that actually caused the tension because people didn't understand why that should happen. But at the end of today, just around 15 minutes past 5, the body was finally laid to rest at his private residence under heavy security. And I was told that the security was necessary because they had to ensure that the directive that has been given by the Regional Security Council must be followed by the Napa family. And so, yes, finally, the late Na Salifu-Dawoni has been laid to rest.
Right. So I'm not sure many people understand the rituals or customary rites that usually are performed for persons of that stature. Can you run us through what you know about the norms and traditions and rituals that needed to be performed before he was buried?
Yes, what I can also say about that is that Napa being a sub-chief, if he was a Bimbila chief, today as he was buried, this night, I mean, even during the burial, right after his body has been lowered into the grave, there was supposed to be drum beating, there's supposed to be gunshots to signify that an overlord or a paramount chief has been buried. And then for some kingdoms here in the region, it takes them 3 days. That is after the first 3 days ritual, then a regent is king. For other people like the Bimbila, I am told that if he was a Bimbila chief tonight, as we are seated here, or as we realize, the rituals to enskin his regent would have been ongoing as of this time. But because he was just a sub-chief, that is an Napa chief, and of course because also his case is actually at the Supreme Court, which is being challenged by his people, because the National House of Chiefs, the Northern Regional House of Chiefs, and the Tamale Circuit have all upheld that the Dasana family are the rightful occupants of the skin of Bimbila. And so because of that, that is how come the Napa appealed at the Supreme Court. And so with the case through at the Supreme Court, though he's even a sub-chief, that some rituals and some dramas should have happened, but because the case is at the Supreme Court, nothing of that sort happened today.
Right. Thank you very much, Zubaida Ismail, for that update. Zubaida Ismail is our Northern Regional Correspondent, and you heard her there confirming that there have been tensions in Bimbila following the burial of the late Nakpa Salifu-Dawoni. The Bumai family had vowed to resist his burial, which was scheduled for Thursday, October 12th. The body of the Nakpa Na Salifu-Dawoni has been buried in Bimbila, and Zubaida tells us that he was laid to rest at his private residence. So this was ahead of the scheduled burial, which was expected to be tomorrow. And as Zubaida tells us, calm is returning to the place. Right, so we're working the telephone lines to get onto the line. Sania Adibo is a security analyst to join us in the discussion. I'm told that Sania Adibo is on the line now. Ms. Adibo, good evening. Thank you extremely for joining us. Right, we don't have Sania Adibo on the line. This is News at 10. We're live from the News Hub at Adisawe, Kanda in Accra. You can also hear us on 3FM 92.7. We're streaming live on our Facebook page and also on 3news.com. We'll have to quickly get onto the telephone lines and speak with Sania Adibo. Well, we lost him. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back. Please stay. Welcome back. Let's quickly go on to the telephone lines and speak with Asiedu-Dartey, who is a security analyst. He's joining us to have a discussion over the issues, the tensions in Bimbilla. Ms. Adiba, thank you. I know that you are familiar with the situation in Bimbilla. Now, we had reports that the Bimbilla, the late Nakpa Na Asiedu-Dartey has been laid to rest at his private residence following earlier skirmishes that resulted from attempts by his family to bury him at the designated place for burial of chiefs. Do you get the impression that his burial at his private residence will bring any other implications?
Well, thank you very much, and a very good evening to your viewers. There's absolutely nothing intrinsically or fundamentally wrong with burying the dead. However, there are some legitimate questions that need some answers when dealing with quite complex and sensitive issues as chieftaincy, especially in the northern parts of the country. First and foremost, the question is, the parties involved, have they all been duly consulted? Secondly, where are they burying him? Is it in Nakpa as Nakpana or in Bimbilla as the overlord? That would mean giving him legitimacy over the current regent of Danum. Thirdly, in what capacity is he being buried? Is he being buried as a royal?
Ms. Adib, let's get a better understanding of the issue at stake. I mean, you are raising questions of what it would have meant if he was buried in Bimbilla, but he's Nakpa and was buried in Nakpa in his private residence, I'm told. That's not a contradiction and doesn't bother anyone, does it?
Well, let me indicate, without mincing words, that the letter that went to RecSec on the 25th of September requesting approval for his burial was silent about where he was going to be buried. It was silent about who is going to be buried. And it was silent about due consultations, even though in 2014, this family held discussion with the late overlord of the area, and they agreed in principle to bury him in Nakpa. But 2 days after that, they reneged on their promise. You see, I am a security analyst, and I don't want to take sides, but it is in telling the truth to power that we'll be able to get solutions, an everlasting one for that matter, to this issue. Okay? I think it would only be prudent if due consultations was done, the various families consulted on the whole issue, so nobody will be taken aback, so nobody in Nanum would feel marginalized by the system. Then we can have them even reach a consensus, because I have always maintained that one of the surest ways to solve, at least to manage the chieftaincy issues in the north, is to ensure that the laws are well enforced, okay? Because so far as we are concerned, the issue, first of all, went to the Nairi, it went to the High Court, it went to the Regional House of Chiefs, it went to the National Houses of Chiefs. Now it's being appealed at the Supreme Court, okay? Right. So in whatever we do, we should take into account the fact that this issue is still before the court, so we don't have to be seen as not respecting the court or marginalizing a section of Nanum society. Right,
Mr. Asiedu-Dartey, we'll leave it here. We're grateful for your time. Thank you very much. Asiedu-Dartey is a security analyst. Let's move away from that. Former President Jerry John Rawlings says Ghana's political climate does not attract selfless persons who can contribute to the country's development. He made the observation when management of Media General called on him at his office in Accra.
Led by the group CEO, Pearl Asuamensa, the visit was to update the former president on Media General's new direction.
We're proudly Ghanaian, and being proudly Ghanaian means that we also want to portray a Ghanaian culture and to make sure that everybody in Ghana is reminded of why we were the top. I mean, our vision is very bold. We want to be known as the media house globally by 2025.
Former President Rawlings charged Media General to champion the cause of social development through its content.
Unfortunately, I think we've used our TV to portray some of the most unacceptable things. The TV should serve a better purpose. Let's use it to lift standards, to perpetuate that which is correct, proper. But if you use it for the wrong thing, and there's nobody around to condemn it, to slap it down, it perpetuates itself.
He challenged the media to expose wrongdoing irrespective of the person's social standing.
But the political platform will not allow them to stand on a platform to win us over. It was too vicious, too callous. If we don't create space for them to be seen and heard, in order to give confidence to the others, to draw them in, to create their own music, they will be suppressed by the corrupt climate we have created.
General Manager for News at Media General, Joseph Warungu, was clear on the direction of Media General in becoming the Pan-African broadcaster.
The Pan-African broadcaster is unoccupied, so our ambition is to make sure that we can report the African continent from an African and even a Ghanaian perspective, that we can bring the world to Ghana and take Ghana to the world, and also create employment and opportunities for actors, storytellers, journalists, as we do that.
And Sanda International Ghana Limited, a ceramic manufacturing company, has donated relief items worth 40,000 cedis to victims of Saturday night's atomic junction gas explosion at the 37 military hospital here in Accra.
The donation, mainly detergent, was in response to appeals made to corporate Ghana by Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to assist surviving victims, most of whom are currently on admission at some health facilities across the capital. Managing Director of Sanda International, Isaac Hu, explained the gesture forms part of the company's corporate social responsibility policy.
I hope that the whole country will join together to help the families to pass this disaster. And in future, I think the whole country will work together to avoid this disaster happen again.
The donation made at the 37 military hospital was received by Colonel Yeboah Jipon on behalf of the hospital.
The materials you've brought are actually the ones that we need because some of the patients are burnt, sustained some burns, and we need cleaning materials for them. We are very happy that you heard and you've come to help those who are still on the wards.
Sanda International has previously donated 14 tons of iron rods in the Circle gas explosion.
Right, and 37 military hospital is calling for more support to cater for victims of the atomic gas explosion currently on admission at the hospital. Management says benevolent organizations and individuals are supporting the hospital.
According to Commander of the 37 Military Hospital, Brigadier General Ernest Crosby Saka Jr., 40 patients were rushed to the hospital on the evening of the atomic gas explosion. Later, 14 were referred, bringing the number to 54. The hospital has so far recorded 2 deaths.
We've taken care of them through whatever we have. Mostly, a number of them were injuries, not directly from the explosion, but in the confusion. And some were knocked down by vehicles. The 2 that died, one was a knockdown who was brought in dead.
The commander, who was appreciative of the support from benevolent organizations and individuals, called for more because of the nature of cases they have to deal with.
Some people have been magnanimous enough to help us out. Those in the ICU have wide area body bends, so for them we need plenty of dressings, plenty of antibiotic creams and infusions, and then the drugs.
Acting Public Relations Officer of the hospital, Joanna Sepe, took the news team round the wards. Some victims spoke to the news team.
We saw the fire coming, so everybody is rushing. The second one, that I know that when I fall down, when I stand up, I can't. When I stand up, I know that my leg is someplace. So I took it, and the second man come and carry me. My leg is paining me seriously. In my eye, I can't see proper.
It happened where I sell. I don't know how it happened. When I realized I was in the hospital.
An inflation rate for September was 12.2%, down by 0.1 percentage point from the 12.3% recorded in August. Deputy Government Statistician Anthony Amozu attributed the decrease to a fall in prices of major food items, especially those produced locally.
The Consumer Price Index, or Consumer Inflation Rate, measures the change over time in the general price level of goods and services that households acquire for the purpose of consumption. Inflation for September was 12.2%. This means the rate of inflation was down by 0.1 from 12.3% recorded in August. Deputy Government Statistician Anthony Amozu explained the fall in the inflationary rate could be attributed to a decline in the price of locally produced foodstuff.
In August, where I think 4 or 5 subgroups that recorded rates that were higher than the group's rate. But this time around, we have only one, which is the fish and seafood, indicating that for the others, the rate has dropped. Harvesting season. See, there is a lot of fresh yam on the market. There is tomato on the market and other items. So that is possible cause.
Food and non-alcoholic beverages group recorded a year-on-year inflation rate of 8.1%, with some of the main prices being on fish and seafood, vegetables, oil and fats, meat and meat products. Non-food group recorded a year-on-year inflation rate of 14.1%, with main drivers coming from items such as transport, recreation and culture, clothing and footwear. Imported goods were 1.9 percentage points higher than locally produced. This is attributed to cost of shipping, import duties and other charges, as well as profit margins.
The exchange rate regime and then where the goods are coming from, transportation of the freight and all that. So those are possible causes for the rate for imported items to be always higher than that of the locally produced items.
The 0.1% decrease in consumer inflation suggests prices of consumer goods and services were fairly stable in September this year.
And that's how we wrap up with news at 10. Thank you very much for staying with us. There's more news at 3news.com. On behalf of the crew here, good night.